In today's video, we're going to talk about Maulawi Pir Agha, who was the general commander of the Taliban special units in Ghazni province in central Afghanistan. Let's proceed with the intriguing story of the so-called cruelest Taliban. It's not a simple task to be awarded the title of the most brutal commander among the Taliban. The Taliban have a long history of brutal leaders, so to be the worst of the worst is not an easy thing to achieve for sure. For example, one 33-year-old woman who was working as a policewoman in Afghanistan's Ghazni province was attacked by 3 Taliban who were shooting at her from a motorcycle. Afterwards, they approached her and gouged out her eyes with a knife. On one occasion, 2 guys were caught by the Taliban using mobile phones and were ordered to swallow their SIM cards for punishment. It's important to point out that these are not the worst crimes committed by the Taliban, so you can only imagine what Pir Agha had to do in order to earn the title of the most brutal Taliban commander. Even the Taliban were scared of him. You're going to find out why very soon. Maulawi Pir Agha, earning the reputation. Maulawi Pir Agha was the general commander of the Taliban special units in Ghazni province in central Afghanistan. He's widely regarded as one of the cruelest Taliban commanders ever, thanks to his brutal ventures and wrongdoings. Afghanistan is known for extremely brutal and controversial characters like assassins, torturers, and criminals who commit serious crimes against humanity, including Afghans. That means it's not easy to gain the title of the cruelest Taliban commander, but Pir Agha gained it nevertheless. Before him, during the 1990s, there was a man named Mullah Dadullah, who was generally regarded as the worst of the worst, and nobody could ever imagine that someone even worse could appear. He used to burn villages and eliminate everybody standing in his way, not even sparing children. Due to that, Taliban's supreme leader, Mullah Omar, dismissed him. Omar, on the other hand, had thousands of armed men under his command, including suicide bombers, meaning he was also regarded as very brutal. In 2000, Dadullah commanded his fighters to massacre ethnic Hazaras in the Bamyan province of Afghanistan. The Hazaras were resisting the Pashtun-dominated Taliban. Hundreds of Hazaras lost their lives in that massacre. But the worst thing was that Dadullah and his fighters didn't care whether these people who were massacred were part of the resistance force or not. The next year, when the Taliban government was expelled by the US-led military operation as a result of a previous Afghan-based al-Qaeda attack on the US, he continued where he left off, chopping off the heads of anyone he perceived as his opponent. The next year, he was assassinated in Helmand province near the Afghanistan-Pakistan border in a CIA-led operation. Afterwards, Pir Agha showed up. He was a relatively low-ranking commander of the Afghan Taliban, who became a symbol of terror in no time. He had no problem neutralizing anyone who said anything bad about him or the organization. Even though he committed numerous crimes, he earned his reputation most likely by assassinating the whole family of Mullah Dadullah, including his younger brother in Zabul province. An Afghan elder explains the situation, stating that cruel people usually get rid of the cruel. Simply, that's how things go there. Pir Agha's tragic accident. On July 26, 2022, the recently returned Taliban commander allegedly lost his life in a car accident in Kotal-e-Roza in Ghazni province while on his way from Kabul to the province. To make things more interesting, Pir Agha recently performed the Hajj and returned from the pilgrimage not long before the lethal accident. Pir Agha lost his life most likely due to the critical wounds he received when his vehicle overturned. 3 bodyguards, also in the vehicle at the time, were seriously injured in the accident. Kotal-e-Roza is generally said to be a dangerous route, and the accident took place at night. But this time, the driver's carelessness is most likely the one to blame for what happened. Pir Agha's rise. Pir Agha was the head of the Taliban's roving Rapid Reaction Force, sent to southern Afghanistan in order to neutralize fighters close to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the so-called caliph of the self-declared Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, that was spreading around Africa and commonly referred to as ISIS. From that point, Pir Agha's career started rising. During that fight, he caught the eye of some very important people, including Mullah Mansour, who obtruded himself as a replacement for the late Mullah Omar in the role of the top Taliban leader. Mullah Mansour counted on Pir Agha to join him in fighting against ISIS and any other enemy group. He also awarded him the title Leader of the Faithful. How cruel was Pir Agha actually? Thanks to the testimonies of people that were direct victims of Pir Agha or know someone who was his victim, we discover how cruel he was. According to Muhammad Khan Kaka, an Afghan elder who tried to negotiate his brother's freedom from a mobile prison run by Pir Agha several times, Pir Agha had a long beard, a long sharp moustache, a fat body and bloody eyes. He claims he's never seen such a horrific character in his whole 60 years of life. He added that Pir Agha has human skin and appearance, but there's no human in him. Kaka stated that he had more in common with animals than with other humans. He assassinated his prisoners in the blink of an eye, and Kaka compared that with a bird eating its prey. The worst thing is that it doesn't end there. Kaka says that kids as little as 8 and elders aged about 80 had their hands tied with iron chains and were thrown in the back of a truck. The second testimony of Pir Agha's terror comes from a man that wanted to keep his anonymity. He says that as many as 1,500 people in his village were arrested by Pir Agha because they belonged to the Mullah Dadullah tribe. Besides that, Pir Agha punished people for giving shelter to a fugitive Talib or his personal detractors. Another Afghan villager that wanted to go by the name Amir Shah stated people often scare their kids by telling them that Pir Agha is going to come and eat them if they are misbehaving or don't want to go to sleep. Petrified kids start crying and cover their heads in blankets as soon as they hear his name. That's how brutal his reputation is. The worst crime and possibly the biggest tragedy Pir Agha was responsible for. Amir Shah had more to say because unfortunately he witnessed something very tragic while he was in Pir Agha's custody, and he decided to share his experience with the media. During that time, someone approached Pir Agha and told him that a Pakistani or Burmese religious scholar named Mufti Abu Zar had a desire to surrender to the Taliban. Mufti Abu Zar was with Chechens and Uzbeks and some others who were loyal to ISIS. But Mufti changed his mind and decided to seek forgiveness from Pir Agha on a promise that he will part ways with ISIS and al-Baghdadi. Pir Agha's answer was affirmative. At least, that's what it looked like. He told Mufti to go get his family from ISIS-controlled villages. Mufti did as he was told and brought his 9 children, including 2 infants and 2 wives, to the agreed location. Afterwards, upon seeing them, Pir Agha commanded his people to let Mufti's vehicle pass, with a smile on his face. All of a sudden, when it was least expected, Pir Agha ordered his men to fire a rocket-propelled grenade meant to stop tanks at the family car that had 11 men, women, and children inside. Amir Shah finishes his testimony by saying he used to support the Taliban for a long time, but stopped some time ago due to all these tragedies for which they were directly responsible. He had considered them soldiers of God, but now he's sure they are evil and that they can only be God's enemies and nothing else. A senior Afghan Taliban leader says that Pir Agha had approximately 1,200 Taliban fighters who were operating in Zabul, Uruzgan, Logar, Maidan, and Ghazni provinces under his direct command. Local Afghans are very disappointed that these things were happening to their country. They also blame the US and Western Europe because they were unable to put a stop to this kind of savage behavior, even after 15 years of intervention and allowing many Taliban commanders to rule the country and commit numerous crimes. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and comment on this video. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like what we're doing and you want us to continue with more cool content. Until the next time.